Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. This session is called Innovation Grant Showcase Payroll Deductions Processes. And with me, I have Barton Dyson and Christina Pollard. I am Nichols Condon. I'm a CSM here at Blackbaud, and I'm going to be your moderator today. In case you guys don't know Barton, Barton's the founder of NP Automate. Before that, he worked for Blackbaud for over 20 years. He's old school and everyone loves him. And then we have Christina Pollard. Christina is a database analyst at the University of Tennessee Medical Center, or UT Medical Center, which is a lot easier to say. They're going to show us a little bit, and hopefully we will all be a little smarter for it. If you guys will stick around at the end, we're going to have a survey, and then it will be time to go to the closing session with the awards at 4:30 Eastern Time. So with that, I will turn it over to Christina and Barton.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Christina, we're having a little trouble hearing you.
Try it again.
Now?
It's better now.
It's
great now.
Now it's
Perfect.
great.
We just
Okay.
need
All right.
to do it 3 times.
That's right.
Okay. I'm new to this, so please forgive me. Anyway, welcome, and thank you for joining us today for a presentation on automating the process of employee giving through payroll deductions. My name is Christina Pollard, and as Nichols said, I'm a data analyst at the University of Tennessee Medical Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Barton, if you have anything further to introduce yourself with, feel free.
Sure. I think Nichols did a pretty good job. Barton Dyson, I'm with NP Automate, and we help organizations automate processes. In addition to implementing solutions like Razor's Edge and Financial Edge, we spend a considerable amount of time with helping organizations get the most out of tools like Microsoft Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI, and take advantage of those within the Blackbaud solutions. So part of this project, we work with Christina and her team on how to utilize Power Automate to get some enhancements and optimizations around payroll deductions.
Absolutely. Barton has been my OB1 through this process, so thank you, Barton. I am fairly new to Power Automate, to the entire platform, and I have to stress just how pivotal the community has been in my onboarding of all of these tools. At last year's BB Dev Days, I was awarded the innovation grant for this idea, and that is why I was working with Barton from NP Automate to get this going. It was an amazing award, and I'm so grateful for it. So if you're not already taking advantage of the community and the resources that are already out there, those that have gone before you, asking for help, I strongly encourage it. Everyone in the community is so generous with their time and their knowledge, and I just want to give a big shout out to them. So thank you all. Let's see, I guess I should go to my slides now. Not those. Okay, so love this slide, and I updated it, but I didn't get it in time. The purpose of this flow really is to the Power Automate workflow receives requests from team members to donate through their payroll or through their paychecks through payroll deductions. It tracks these donations in Razor's Edge and Excel, and then it informs the development team and the payroll department of the submitted request. So before building any project, you want to map out the project or the process to see what can be automated. Having a visual to help keep things in order can be a huge time saver and a good way to stay on track. You also want to consider how much time this will save. How much time it will take, and even more so, how much time it can save in the future. Because being efficient is great, but being scalable and having forward thinking can equate to even greater success. So consider what the pain points are. If the pain points of the current process can be eliminated with a workflow and reduce human error and save time, then I would consider it a win. And here is a mapped out process of the old way that we used to do things, the very manual process. Up at the top, you can see an email is received from an employee to add, update, or cancel a payroll deduction from their paycheck. Then a development staff member goes into Razor's Edge to see if this constituent already exists. And if they do, the staff member will use recurring gift shells as placeholders on the record to outline where the support should be allocated, and creates an action for tracking purposes. The import file is received from payroll. If they don't exist, a new record is created manually again, and these same steps are followed. So then the information from there is manually entered into a master Excel file of all additions or edits to employees' giving history. It kind of serves as a shadow database, which is not ideal, but it works in this purpose. So from this master file, a new file is created, again manually, and saved with just the newest submission as a flat file and emailed to the payroll department to implement. And I say flat file because for audit purposes, they have to have a non-editable version once it's sent to them. So that part's pretty critical. So planning out the build, we considered a couple different options for submitting the requests. So the multiple forms that are out there, all great, but we decided on JotForm due to its existing API connectors within Power Automate, and also the ease of building out the forms. At UT, we're already using JotForms to some degree. I'm hoping that we'll get enterprise version of this at some point. So we decided to stick with what other people are doing as well. There were some pain points with connecting JotForm in Power Automate, but once I created a new user account, the connector linked perfectly. And I did utilize the community for that. So thank you all for your support in helping me get that resolved. So we've probably heard a few times this week about our good, better, best options when building things out. So don't bite off more than you can chew. I'm really good at having these big, grand ideas and wanting to do so many things that just become overwhelming and maybe aren't even feasible. So consider what's realistic and what can actually be built out today that will save time. So I wanted to, what my best or better option would have been is to have Razor's Edge add a recurring gift shell to the system at the time of this submission. But the nuances that came along with that were just too much to automate, and it would probably have created errors and not been a time-saving solution. So things to keep in mind in those scenarios is the enhancements to the process can always be added later. And some manual interaction may still be required, even in a perfect scenario. So the option that we went with was a good solution, a good workable solution. It writes all the data to the Excel files, sends emails to corresponding departments for processing, and creates an action in Razor's Edge when a record is found. All right, so let's get started. So step one is our JotForm. It'll play. There was a video in there, but it's not necessary. So the JotForm is filled out by the staff member. This is housed on our internal website, and it collects the data from the employee. If the donor has existing giving, It will be pre-populated in those fields. Yeah, I guess it won't play through, but that's okay. So any changes that they need to make are either going to be appended to what their existing giving is, or they're going to add new information into those blank fields. If they want to cancel it, they'll just go ahead and delete everything from the form except for their name and unique identifiers. Oh, sorry, share again. And the next step is to populate the Excel files and email them to the corresponding teams. The workflow, once it's triggered, it writes a new row to the existing master Excel file. And I've shared a copy of this here. So in essence, this is going to record every job form submission that comes through on this request form, and it will just continue adding row after row after row, just tracking the history of those submissions.
And just to add to that, Christina, you want that file to be in SharePoint or OneDrive or somewhere that the automation can get to, can reach. So it shouldn't just be an Excel file on someone's machine.
Yes, good point. Thank you. So then once all that information is put into this master file, it's sent to the development team to alert them of the submission. Then a second file is created, and this is also a video that would show the next file, but it is essentially just this bottom row, the new submission that has come in, and it is written to its own file, also on SharePoint, that is specifically for the payroll department to process. Next, we get to our switch conditions. So we use this to find out if the constituent is already in Razor's Edge. And if it does match to a record, then it's going to create a constituent action. And if no record is found, that's when it alerts the development team that human interaction is required. And here we see that a record was matched and an action has been created. So this will write the same action type. I can barely see that, sorry. It's got payroll deduction TM campaign update for each submission, so that it kind of identifies where it came from and what it is, what purpose it serves. It writes all the information of that submission form into that action to let us know right then and there that they're giving to specific funds and the amounts that they're giving to. And then the action is left open for tracking purposes. It will remain open until I'm sent the import file from the payroll department, just to cross-reference and make sure the changes that have been submitted have actually been implemented. So what this looks like in Power Automate, I need to switch over. Let's see. Give me a second. I'll share my screen. Okay, there we go. I've got to pull my notes up too. Okay. So as you can see, the flow is started when a response is submitted. And this is our trigger that comes directly from JotForm. This is all the data that has been submitted into the form by the employee. From there, we put in a parse JSON action. So it converts this array into usable data points that we can use later in the flow. So the fund description formatting was kind of a big piece because we have so many gift funds, and getting fund IDs and fund descriptions into the form was kind of a headache. So what I did in the JOT form itself is concatenate the fund description and the fund ID. But when it gets into the data files, we need these to be separated. And so I had to initialize variables for the fund name and for the fund ID. So we tell it that we want it to be a string in these initialized variables here, and then we set each variable to have, for the fund name, just the fund name, and for the fund ID, we have just the fund number. And so I have used an expression in each of these set variables. For the description, I used a trim first using this dash up here as my separator. So everything before the dash is going to be first, and that is going to be put into the variable. And then so everything after the dash is going to be considered trim last. And something I really stress here, because I am by no means an expression wizard, especially when they're all embedded and there's so many different aspects to expressions. They fail when you try them, or they just don't work. I found ChatGPT to be an incredible resource in building out these flows. It's kind of changed my error handling and the time that it takes to build these flows out. It's essentially like having a conversation with a robot rather than just doing individual searches for each individual question. It keeps the conversation going when things don't work that they suggest. So I strongly encourage using that. And I am on a paid account, but they do have free accounts as well. It's just I ask it so many questions that mine ran out of submissions, so I had to do a paid account. Okay, so once we get past all these variables, our first Excel file is going to be that master Excel file, and that is simply just an add a row to a table. We don't have to save it as a new file. It's just going to addend whatever is already in there and add a new row. It writes all the data onto one row. Then the next piece that we get to, we have to start considering the second file. And because we have to create a whole new file, we have to give it a name, and we have to give it a unique name every single time. So we concatenated this static information here that just says payroll deduction submission request with a dash, and then the dynamic field of the name of the person submitting and a timestamp. You have to put the .xlsx at the end so that the system knows that it is an Excel file. And another thing that we had to consider in this, when writing Excel, it's not the same for CSV forms, but we did need an Excel file for payroll. We needed to tell the new file what our column headers were going to be. So I had to go ahead and create a new template that has just our column headers, and it's going to be kind of like your name value pairs, where we'll show you later. You tell it what the column is, and then the information that is going to go in there is going to be written into it. So we create the file, tell it where we want it to go, give it the name, all of the criteria that is required for this new form. And then we compose the data that we want to put into this form. So we put that in a compose action. You can see all the data here. And then we add a row into the table. So you can see the red is going to, is it this one? I think it's a little bit farther down. No, it is that one. So the red fields are going to be your column headers. And then this blue data is going to be what we're collecting from the submission form and putting into the Excel file. So we had to build in a 10-second delay because it needed time to go into SharePoint, locate that template for the column headers, get this data into that file, and just kind of merge all of the information. It kept failing when we didn't put in that delay, so that part is required. Then it creates a file, attaches it to an email, and sends it off to the payroll department to alert them of these changes. Our next step is a send HTTP request. So the data field that we were searching by, or the unique identifier on each record, we wanted to look at a constituent. We told it we wanted to search, and what were we searching by? We were searching by their email address. So then the text that we want to search is a dynamic field that we put in there of this is my email address. I was the case in this submission. So it will look for this email address in the email field, and we only wanted to look at constituent records. Then we get to our switch condition, and in this case scenario, it's a success. We found a record. We pulled the system record ID. We created the action here. As you can see, it's got that payroll deduction campaign update, all of the gift information. We've left this action open, and an email has been sent to the development team to let them know that all of this has taken place. In the next case scenario, no record has been found, and so this will require the most human interaction. It lets the development team know that we didn't find a Razor's Edge records. We'll most likely have to create one, create the action, and track everything. So now our flow is finished, and voila. The end.
And a couple of things to add to that, Christina, was we were searching on email address. So like we said, if we didn't find the email address, then maybe the record doesn't exist. You know, within your form itself, you could have the person entering in their constituent ID. We could try a number of different things, but that was just a way for us to do a search, and email addresses in this case was a pretty safe way to know that if we have a single match against the email address in a record within the system, we know that employee is already in the Razor's Edge. So that was a good check. If it was in there twice, or if we didn't find it at all, we know a constituent needs to be added, and so that could steer the process in a different direction. So that's where that switch was really useful. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, Christina.
Okay.
The first being, do you have any error handling for a fund that is inactive? And I think they're referring to the form itself, because we're not really creating a gift with a fund, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, but you're providing an upload to the JOT form periodically that provides a list of the active funds. So when they're not entering in a fund ID or a fund name, they're choosing from that list of active funds. Is that accurate?
It is a drop down, and they don't have to manually enter anything. So there's no chance of them mistyping something or entering something that is inactive.
Perfect. Some more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
No, did I answer that completely?
I think so. Another one said, why JOT forms? Can others like Microsoft forms work as well? And absolutely. And we wanted to highlight that, where, use what works best for you. Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, which I've worked with a lot with organizations. JOT forms in this case, both JOT forms and Microsoft Forms have, standard connections via Power Automate, but you can really use any tools that allow you to get a response and start an automation off with a response. So it could be any trigger that can feed to that. So it could really be any form type you want to use or that you're comfortable with that really supports the types of questions that you're asking or that you're asking people to fill out. I think a couple of people asked that question. Hopefully we tackled that. And another question, does it look at all emails on the record or only a specific type of email? I believe in this case, within the search, it's actually searching all emails. Maybe a way to specify if you want it to be primary or other, but a constituent lookup, you have to provide a constituent ID. A constituent search, you can provide a number of different fields. You can search on first name or last name, or you can specify email. We went with email, but if a record had 4 email addresses and one of them was this email address, it would find a match. Is that correct, Christina? That is my understanding. All right, we got another one that's really long. Let's see here. They're not long, but I had to click to read more. So, amazing work. So, amazing work, Christina. Do you allow employees to donate to more than one fund? And if so, how do you handle changes to funds in the form? How do you know which fund the employee is changing?
So we allow 3 gift funds per payroll cycle, and we've got those preloaded into the form. So an employee, when they go to that form, they will know where their allocations already are. They would simply write over it or delete it if they wanted to remove one completely, to make changes to that submission. And then once they hit submit, it's almost as if it's a whole new submission that's coming through. But any changes are the ones that are implemented, and anything that is staying the same is untouched.
Correct. And then we had a question from Jen saying, so you are not creating a gift from this flow at all. And that's a little bit of the good, better, best. I'll take a stab at this and you can add to it, Christina. So around recurring gifts, one of our concerns as we were digging into this was, in some cases, we want to create a new recurring gift. In some cases, we want to edit an existing recurring gift. And so we wanted to first ensure that we didn't create duplicates within the system through an automation. In addition to making sure we're just creating good data. So at this point, no, but there is an opportunity to perhaps expand this where we can almost use a switch to maybe determine if it needs to be a new gift or an existing gift and try to find it. But we didn't have a really good solution out of the gate for how to ensure we weren't creating duplicates. Anything you would add to that, Christina?
No, I would just say that maybe part of the good, better, best scenario is taking a look at the process overall. It may be that we don't need a recurring gift shell, but that's something that I'll just have to evaluate later in how we want to track that. If we can track it through our constituent action, we just need a record of an employee's giving, and if the action serves that purpose, or if an attribute or something else serves that purpose, then that can also be kind of shifted in the process. But that's not something I wanted to do in this good scenario.
Yeah. And another comment was our payroll deductions go on as a one-time gift at our organization. So maybe in that case, it's a little easier to leverage as opposed to having to work with a shell. You just want to ensure that if they already have a deduction, you're not creating a new gift, or you're at least removing the old gift of that type and adding the new one. But it's probably a little easier to work with as opposed to a recurring gift shell. It's like one more question, and on the chat page, would this work for an organization that has 1,000 plus funds? Don't see. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. Christina, how many funds do you have at the foundation?
I mean, we have more than I can count, but for employee giving, we selected probably 200 or 300 of our most active gift funds. There's definitely another way to handle it. As Barton mentioned, I preloaded the gift funds that they can give to in a drop down, but there's definitely some different ways to build this out where it might be able to call the system and ask it for all of those fund IDs. But you have to remember there's going to be a huge delay with 1,000 records to call on.
Yeah, definitely some value to providing it to the form ahead of time. And you certainly don't want to have a scenario where someone has to type it in where it could potentially not find the right record, or they could misspell it. So I think it totally makes sense to work off of a table. So. All right. Well, I think we have hit all the questions, Nichols.
Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I hope you got a lot out of the whole conference as a whole. Next up, closing celebration and awards. That's the fun one. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Barton.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, y'all.